Sharp knocks against the wood, one after another, violent, desperate. And then her voice. The voice I had learned to fear over 2 years of hell. "Open this damn door, you useless old woman. Open it right now, or I swear I'll kick it down." Sandra, my daughter-in-law, banging on the door of my own house as if she were a criminal trying to break in. The irony is so bitter it almost makes me laugh. She's the one who should be on the outside, her and my son, because this house, this home I built with years of sacrifice, was never theirs. I was inside, sitting in the only armchair they had allowed me to use, listening as the new lock resisted every blow. I had changed all the locks that morning. All of them. And I didn't ask for permission. Why would I? It's my house. It always was. The shouting continued. "Eleanor, I'm going to sue you. This is property theft. I'm calling the cops. Property theft. In my own house." The words were so absurd that I felt something inside me, something that had been broken for a very long time, finally break free. There was no more fear. The knot in my stomach that greeted me every morning was gone. There was only clarity, cold, crystal clear clarity. 30 minutes later, I heard another car. I knew that engine. It was Kevin's, my son, the man to whom I gave everything. The child I raised as my own, even though he didn't carry my blood. And when he got out of the car, when I saw through the window that he was holding a crowbar, I knew the moment had come. The moment when everything I had planned for months would finally begin to unfold. "Mom, open the door." His voice sounded controlled, but I knew that tone. It was the tone he used right before he exploded, the tone that came before the insults, the veiled threats, the cold contempt that forced me to sleep in the utility room of my own house. "Open it now, or I'm going to break this door down." I walked closer, but I didn't open it. I just spoke through the wood. "I'm not opening it, Kevin. This is my house, and you don't live here anymore." The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then came the explosion. "Your house? This is everyone's house. We've lived here for 2 years. You can't just kick us out like this." Sandra joined the chorus. "You have to give us prior notice. This is illegal. I'm going to record you and put it on the internet so everyone can see what kind of mother you are." Recordings. Funny she should mention that, because I had recordings too. Lots of them. And not just of this moment. I told them to leave, to talk to a lawyer if they wanted, that I had already spoken to mine. That stopped them. I saw the doubt in Kevin's eyes through the peephole. Sandra, on the other hand, only grew more furious. "You don't have money for a lawyer. You can barely afford your own food. Stop making things up." But I wasn't making anything up. 3 months ago, I hired Julian, one of the best family eviction lawyers in the city. I paid him $15,000 up front, money they thought I didn't have. Money I had saved in secret for years. In an account I opened when my husband died. An account Kevin never knew about. An account that was my lifeline when I decided enough was enough. Because there was an exact moment. A breaking point. It was 3 months ago, a Tuesday afternoon. I was cleaning the kitchen after making them dinner. Roast chicken and potatoes. Kevin's favorite dish since he was a boy. Sandra came in and left her dirty plate on the table. She didn't even take it to the sink, just left it there, with food stuck to it. And she looked at me. "Tomorrow I want you to wash the curtains in the master bedroom. And while you're at it, since you do nothing all day, you could iron all the clothes for the week. You do nothing all day. Me who got up at 5 in the morning to have breakfast ready. Me who cleaned every corner of a house that no longer felt like mine. Me who slept in a tiny room while they occupied the master suite with its private bathroom and walk-in closet. The room that had been mine for 30 years. Sandra," I said that afternoon, trying to stay calm. "I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I can wash the curtains the day after." She turned around. Her gaze was pure ice. "A doctor's appointment? And who's going to take you? Because we don't have time to be chauffeuring you around. If you want to go, take the bus." The bus. I'm 65 years old. I have knee problems, and the clinic was a 40-minute ride away. But that didn't matter. Nothing I needed ever mattered. Kevin came in right then. I explained the situation to him. I hoped, with a naivete that now embarrasses me, that he would step in, that he would remember all the times I took him to the doctor when he was a child, all the sleepless nights when he had a fever, all the sacrifices. But he just sighed. "Mom, Sandra's right. We can't be looking after you all the time. You're a grown woman. You need to learn to do things on your own. Learn to do things on my own." As if I hadn't spent the last 40 years doing everything on my own. As if I hadn't raised a son alone after his biological father abandoned us. As if I hadn't worked 2 jobs to give him an education, clothes, food, a future. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the cracked ceiling of the utility room, listening to their laughter in the living room. They were watching a movie, eating popcorn, living their lives while I existed in the margins. And something in me broke. Or maybe it was fixed. Because for the first time in 2 years, I saw everything with absolute clarity. This wasn't a life. This was survival. And I hadn't survived so much in my life, only to end up as a shadow in my own house. The next day, I went to see Julian. I told him everything. I showed him the title deed to the house, a deed that was solely in my name. Kevin was never on the paperwork. I bought the house in 1992 with money from my mother's inheritance, years before I adopted Kevin, years before I even met Sandra. Julian reviewed everything carefully. "Mrs. Miller, you have every legal right to reclaim your property. They are occupants without a lease. I can begin the eviction process immediately." I asked him how long it would take, between 2 and 4 months, depending on whether they put up a legal fight. "But with the evidence you have, the clear property documentation, and the fact that they pay no rent, the case is in your favor." Evidence. That's when I showed him my other secret. For 6 months, I had recorded everything, every insult, every humiliation. Every time Sandra called me a burden or a useless old woman. Every time Kevin ignored me when I asked for help, I had over 50 audio files on my phone. Julian listened to them in silence. When he finished, I saw something in his eyes. A mix of outrage and sadness. "Ma'am, this is abuse. Systematic emotional abuse. This doesn't just give you the right to get your house back. This could even warrant a lawsuit for damages." I didn't want to sue. I just wanted peace. I just wanted to sleep in my own bedroom again. To walk through my house again without feeling like every step was an intrusion. To be myself again. So we planned everything. The changing of the locks, the legal notice, the next steps. And today, finally, I did it. The banging on the door continued. But now, it didn't scare me. Because for the first time in 2 years, I was in control. Kevin started hitting the door with the crowbar. The sound of metal against wood was deafening. Each impact made the frame tremble, but the lock held. I had paid extra for reinforced high-security deadbolts. The locksmith gave me a strange look when I asked for the strongest ones he had. "Having trouble with break-ins in the neighborhood, ma'am?" I wish I could have told him the truth. That the robbery had already happened. That my dignity, my peace, and my home had been stolen from me. But I just smiled and said yes, it was a precaution. Outside, Sandra was yelling at the neighbors who were peeking out their windows. "My mother-in-law has lost her mind. She's thrown us out on the street. We're her family and she's kicking us out like dogs." Family. The word they loved to use when they needed something from me, but which disappeared whenever I needed something from them. I remembered last Christmas. Sandra had invited her mother, Sharon, to spend the holidays with us. Well, with them, because I wasn't invited to the dinner. "Mom, the table only seats 6 and it's a tight fit with Sandra's family. You understand, right? Besides, you prefer to eat early anyway." They sent me to have dinner at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, alone, in the kitchen, while they toasted in the dining room with wine that I had paid for. Because that never changed. Even though they treated me like a servant, even though they humiliated me daily, I was still paying the household bills. The electricity, the water, the gas, the internet. It all came out of my pension, an $800 a month pension that Kevin considered enough for you to contribute since you live here for free. Free, in my own house. The lock finally started to give a little. Kevin noticed and hit it with more force. "Almost there. This door is coming down." I had already called the police, 10 minutes ago. I explained the situation calmly. My son is trying to forcibly enter my property. I have the documents to prove the house is mine. He has no legal right to be here. The operator told me she was sending a patrol car immediately. But before they arrived, something outside changed. I heard another neighbor's voice. Mr. Henderson, the man who lived 3 houses down. Young man, what are you doing? You can't break down your mother's door. Sandra answered him with venom. You stay out of this. This is a family matter. Mr. Henderson had been kind to me over these past 2 years. Sometimes he would greet me when I took the trash out early in the morning, before Sandra woke up and gave me more chores. He once gave me oranges from his tree. So you can make some juice, Eleanor. You've been looking tired lately. Tired. Such a small word to describe the exhaustion of living like a ghost in your own home. Mr. Henderson insisted. But you're damaging private property. I'm going to have to call the police. Kevin stopped hitting the door. We already called them. She's the one who committed a crime. She locked us out without any warning. Without any warning. As if 2 years of abuse wasn't warning enough. The sirens arrived 5 minutes later. 2 patrol cars. 4 officers. Sandra ran toward them, tears appearing out of nowhere. An impressive talent. She could cry on cue in 3 seconds. Officers, thank God. My mother-in-law threw us out on the street. We live here. This is our home. One of the officers, a man in his 40s with a weary expression, looked at Kevin holding the crowbar. Sir, put that down immediately. Kevin obeyed, but with restrained anger. Officer, my mother changed the locks without telling us. We live here. She can't just kick us out. The officer approached the door. He knocked with his knuckles. Ma'am, can you please open the door? I opened it. Slowly. The officers looked at me. A 65-year-old woman, thin, with gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. They probably saw what everyone sees. A little old lady, frail, confused perhaps. But I wasn't confused. For the first time in years, I had absolute clarity. Officers, this is my house. I can show you the documents. I went to get the folder I had prepared. The deed, utility bills in my name. Everything perfectly organized, thanks to Julian. The officer reviewed each paper carefully. Then he looked at Kevin. Do you pay rent here, sir? Kevin stammered. No. She's my mother. Sandra interrupted. It's her obligation to provide us with a roof over our heads. We're her family. She can't just throw us out. The officer sighed. He'd seen this before. You could tell. Ma'am, if the property is in your name and they do not pay rent or have a lease agreement, you have the right to ask them to leave. They can seek legal counsel, but they cannot force their way in. Sandra exploded. This is unbelievable. Call your supervisor. This can't be legal. The other officer, a younger man, stepped in. Ma'am, it's completely legal. The property owner has the right to decide who lives in her home. If you wish to dispute this, you'll have to go to court. Kevin was looking at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that broke my heart. Not remorse, not sadness, just calculation. He was thinking about his next move, about how to get back control. Mom, he said, his voice softer, I get that you're upset. But this is extreme. Where do you want us to sleep tonight? Before, I would have given in. Before, that tone would have made me doubt myself. But not anymore. Kevin, you have family, you have friends, you have resources, you'll find something. Sandra laughed. A bitter, scornful laugh. Resources? We have nowhere to go. And this is your fault. I hope you can sleep at night knowing you put your own son out on the street. The officers exchanged a look. One of them spoke to me in a low voice. Ma'am, are you sure about this? We understand it's your right. But he is your son. I looked him straight in the eye. Officer, for 2 years, I slept in the utility room while they occupied my bedroom. I got up at 5 in the morning to make them breakfast. I cleaned, I cooked, I washed their clothes, and they never once said thank you. They called me a burden. They treated me worse than an employee, because at least you pay an employee and give them a day off. The silence that followed was thick. The officer nodded slowly. I understand. I'm sorry you went through that. Sandra tried one last time. Eleanor, at least let us get our clothes. You can't keep our things. I had already thought of that. All of your clothes are packed in suitcases. You can pick them up tomorrow with a police presence if you wish. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Kevin took a step forward. Mom, please, let's talk about this like adults. I know we've had our differences, but we're family. We can work this out. Differences. He called 2 years of systematic abuse differences. The conversation ended a long time ago, Kevin. Tomorrow at 10, with an officer present, you can pick up your belongings. The officers escorted Sandra and Kevin to their car. She was still screaming. You're going to regret this. I'm going to tell everyone about this. The whole world will know what kind of mother you are. Let her tell them. Let her scream. Because I was going to tell my version too, and I had proof. 53 recordings, text messages, testimonies from neighbors like Mr. Henderson who had seen how they treated me. I closed the door when they left. The silence of the house enveloped me. A different kind of silence. Not the tense silence of tiptoeing around so as not to bother them. Not the silence of hiding in my own home. It was the silence of peace. For the first time in 730 days, I was alone in my house, and it was glorious. I sat down on the living room sofa, the sofa I hadn't dared to sit on in months because Sandra said it was her space. I poured myself a cup of tea. I turned on the television to whatever channel I wanted, not the one they chose, and then the tears came. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Tears of release, tears for all the lost time, for all the dignity I had let them take from me. At 11 o'clock that night, my phone rang. It was Kevin. I didn't answer. He called again, 4 times. On the 5th try, I picked up. What do you want? My voice sounded colder than I expected. Mom, we're at a hotel. Do you know how much this costs? $120 a night. We can't afford this for long. $120. I lived on $800 a month and paid for all the household bills. But he couldn't afford a hotel for a few days. Then find something cheaper, or stay with Sandra's family. Silence. Then his voice changed. It became hard. This isn't over. I spoke to a lawyer. He says I can sue you for wrongful eviction. I smiled. He couldn't see me. But I smiled. Kevin, I spoke to a lawyer too, 3 months ago, and he says I have every right on my side. So if you want to go to court, go ahead. I have documents. I have proof. I have everything I need. He hung up. He didn't call back. But he did send messages. Dozens of them. Some pleading. Mom, I know things haven't been easy. But I don't deserve this. I'm your son. Others threatening. You're going to end up all alone. No one is going to want to help you when you're old and need something. I hope it's worth it. And the worst ones. The ones that revealed who he really was. I should have put you in that nursing home when Sandra suggested it a year ago. At least there you'd be with people your own age, and not getting in the way. I saved every message. Took screenshots. Filed everything away. Because I knew this was just the beginning. The next day, they arrived promptly at 10. With them was Sharon, Sandra's mother, a woman with a sharp face and the eyes of a hawk. I always detested her. And she, me. From the first day, she made it clear I wasn't good enough for her daughter, that Kevin should have married someone with better standing. The officer accompanying them was different from the day before. Younger, less patient. Mrs. Miller, they are here to collect their personal belongings. Do you have everything packed? I nodded. In the master bedroom, 3 large suitcases. I opened the door. They came in like a storm. Sandra didn't even look at me. She went straight to the room. Sharon, however, stopped in front of me. You should be ashamed of yourself. Kicking out your own son. What kind of mother are you? I looked at her without blinking. A mother who got tired of being treated like trash in her own house. Did Sandra tell you how she spoke to me? Or did Kevin mention I was sleeping in the utility room? Sharon snorted. Exaggerations. You were always dramatic. My daughter tells me everything. She says you're the one who causes problems. That you refuse to cooperate. That you're selfish. Selfish. For wanting a hot meal. For wanting to sleep in my own bed. For wanting to be spoken to with respect. Believe what you want, Sharon. Your opinion doesn't matter to me anymore. Sandra came out of the room shouting, "There's clothes missing. My coral dress isn't here, and neither are Kevin's shoes." I had packed everything that was theirs, but I checked again. The coral dress was in the third suitcase. So were the shoes. I showed them to her. Sandra snatched them angrily. "You probably hid them on purpose." Kevin was walking through the house as if he were taking inventory, touching furniture, looking at paintings. "Mom, we need to talk about the furniture. We bought some of these pieces." False. All the furniture was mine. Some pieces were 30 years old. Others I bought before he even came into my life. "You can take anything you have a receipt for in your name." Sandra laughed. "Receipts? Who keeps receipts from years ago?" I did. I kept them all, in a folder in my closet, because I learned a long time ago that in this world you need proof of everything. Then you can't take anything. Sharon intervened. "This is ridiculous. Kevin, call your lawyer. She can't do this." The officer was losing his patience. "Ladies, sir, if there are no receipts, the furniture stays with the owner of the house. Finish packing your clothes and leave." Sandra pulled out her phone. "I'm recording this. I want the whole world to see how you're treating us." "Go ahead. Record. Because I have recordings too. 53 audio files that prove exactly how you treated me." But I didn't say that out loud. I just watched her as she pointed the camera at me. "Here she is, Eleanor, the worst mother-in-law in the world. The worst mother, throwing her son out on the street like he's a stranger. Heartless, soulless." She was speaking to her phone, to her social media followers, because Sandra was one of those people. She lived for social media, for the likes, for the validation of strangers. She had almost 10,000 followers. She posted photos of her perfect life, her perfect marriage, her perfect family, but she never included me in those photos. I was the dirty secret, the inconvenient mother-in-law who lived in the back room. They finished packing, 3 suitcases, 2 boxes. It was very little, much less than they had hoped to take. Sandra tried to go into the kitchen. "I'm taking the blender. My mother gave it to me." A lie. "I bought that blender 5 years ago, on sale, $40. I remember it perfectly." "You're not taking anything from the kitchen." Sandra turned to the officer. See what she's like? She's a tyrant." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, if you can't prove the item is yours, you can't take it. Now, please, exit the property." I watched them carry the suitcases to the car. Sharon gave me one last look of pure hatred. "You're going to die alone, Eleanor. Alone and full of regret." I closed the door before she could finish speaking. The officer stayed for a moment. "Ma'am, are you going to be okay? Sometimes these situations can get complicated." I nodded. "I'll be fine, officer. Thank you for your help." When he left, I walked through my house again. Every step felt different, as if I were rediscovering spaces I had forgotten were mine. I went into the master bedroom, my bedroom. The bed was unmade. There was clothing thrown on the floor, open perfume bottles on the dresser. They lived here as if they owned the place, as if I didn't exist. I started to clean. I changed the sheets for a new set I had kept in storage. I opened the windows wide, letting the fresh air in, letting it carry away their scent, the heavy energy that had soaked into every corner. I wiped down every surface. I reorganized the closet. I took my clothes out of the utility room and hung them where they belonged. In my closet, in my room. That afternoon I called Julian. "They're gone. They made a scene, but they're gone." Julian sounded pleased. "Perfect, Eleanor. Now comes the legal part. They're going to try something. Prepare yourself mentally for what's next." He was right. At 6 o'clock that evening, I received an email. It was from a lawyer, representing Kevin and Sandra. The tone was aggressive, threatening. It demanded that I allow them back into the house immediately. It threatened a lawsuit for wrongful and abusive eviction and familial abandonment. It spoke of emotional distress, of cruelty, of rights they supposedly had. I forwarded the email to Julian without even replying. He responded in 10 minutes. "Don't worry about a thing. This is just legal theatrics. Cheap intimidation. They have absolutely no case. I will respond directly. You do nothing." I felt relieved. Having Julian on my side was like having a shield. That evening, I made dinner. Just for me. Something I liked. Pasta with homemade marinara sauce. Simple. Delicious. I ate in the dining room, at the big table, not at the little kitchen table where they had relegated me. I put on music. Songs I hadn't heard in 2 years because Sandra found them loud and old-fashioned. I poured myself a glass of wine. Just one. To celebrate. To toast to myself. For having found the courage I thought I had lost. When night came, I took a long bath in the tub. With bath salts. With candles. Things I had stored away and never used because Sandra monopolized the bathroom, and I barely had 5 minutes for a quick shower in the mornings. I lay down in my bed. The sheets smelled clean. New. Like freedom. And even though my mind was still on high alert, even though a part of me expected to hear knocking on the door, I managed to rest. Truly rest. For the first time in years, the next day, everything changed. I opened my phone and had 147 notifications, messages from unknown numbers, comments on social media profiles I didn't even know I had. Sandra had posted a video. I found it on her profile. Her, crying, makeup smudged with calculated precision. Kevin by her side with the face of a perfect victim. My mother-in-law threw us out on the street. With no warning. For no reason. We were living with her, helping her with everything, taking care of her, and this is how she repays us. She threw us out like we were animals. My husband is her son, her only son, and this is how she treats him. The video already had 5,000 views. The comments were a river of outrage. What a horrible woman. Old people get so cruel and selfish. Poor kids, so young and already suffering like this. You should sue her. But there were other comments too. Fewer. But they were there. Why did she kick you out? There has to be a reason. Something doesn't add up here. Sandra replied to each one, building her narrative. She's a complicated and manipulative woman. We could never please her. We did everything for her. Everything. And she only gave us problems. She treated us badly. She blamed us for everything. Living with her was hell. I read every comment, every lie, every poisoned word. And something inside me burned. It wasn't rage. It was pure, crystalline determination. I called Julian immediately. "Did you see the video?" His voice was calm. "Yes, Eleanor. I saw it. And it's exactly what we expected. They are digging their own grave." I asked him what I should do. "Nothing for now. Let them talk. Let them lie. Every word they say is evidence in our favor. In the meantime, prepare your own proof, organize the recordings. I'll take care of the rest." I spent the entire day organizing my arsenal. 53 audio recordings. I put them in chronological order. The first one was from 6 months ago. Sandra's voice was crystal clear. "Eleanor, clean the bathroom again. You left hair in the sink and it's disgusting. I don't know why you even bother getting up if you can't do anything right." The second, a week later, Kevin talking to Sandra as if I wasn't there. "My mom is being unbearable lately. I think we should start looking into a nursing home for her. She's not useful for anything anymore." The third, the fourth, the fifth, each one worse than the last. Insults, humiliations, veiled threats. And number 27, that one was the worst of all. It was my birthday. I turned 65. I got up early, as usual. I made breakfast. I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, Kevin would remember. That he would say happy birthday. That Sandra would at least be civil for the day. But no, they ate in silence. They left for work without a word. I went back to my room and cried. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was my cousin Carol, the only family I had left. "Cousin, happy birthday. How are you celebrating?" I lied. I told her it was great. That Kevin had planned something special. I didn't want her to know the truth. I didn't want her pity. But that afternoon, when Sandra got home, I heard everything. She was on the phone with Sharon. I had my phone recording in the kitchen. I had left it there, out of habit, and it captured every word. "Yeah, Mom, it's her birthday today." "No, we didn't say anything." "What for? She'll just get all sentimental and annoying. Besides, she never does anything for us. Why should we celebrate her?" Sandra's voice was cold, dismissive, cruel, and then she laughed. "Kevin says the best gift we can give her is to just ignore her. That way she'll get the hint that she's not important anymore." Listening to that recording now, months later, still hurt. But it no longer broke me. Because now I had power. Now I had control. Julian had taught me something important. Revenge isn't emotional, Eleanor. It's strategic. It's cold. It's calculated. And it's legal. While I was organizing the evidence, the phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Eleanor Miller?" It was a woman's voice. Young, nervous. "Yes, who's calling?" There was a pause. "My name is Jessica. I work with Sandra. I saw her video, and I need to talk to you." My heart sped up. "About what?" Jessica sighed. "About Sandra. About the lies she's telling. I know the truth, and I think you deserve to have someone defend you." I asked her to come to my house. She arrived an hour later. A thin girl in her mid-20s, with restless eyes. She sat in the living room and started talking. "Sandra is always talking badly about you at work. Always. She says you're a burden, that she hates you, that she wishes you would die so she could get the house." The words hit me, but they no longer surprised me. Jessica continued. "2 months ago, at an office lunch, Sandra literally said she was just waiting for you to have some kind of accident or serious illness. That way they could put you in a home and forget about you." We all just sat there in silence. It was horrible to listen to. I asked her why she was telling me this. "Because I saw her video, and I know she's lying. Sandra is no one's victim. Sandra is cruel. And I can't stay quiet and watch her destroy your reputation." I asked if she would be willing to give a written testimony. She agreed. That same afternoon we drafted a document. Signed, dated. With her contact information, Julian would be thrilled. That statement was worth its weight in gold. The next day, Sandra's video had 20,000 views. Local news outlets started covering it. "Heartless mother throws son out on the street." The headlines were sensational, tabloid style. False, but effective. Sandra had given interviews, crying on camera. Kevin remained silent, letting her do the talking. He was smarter than I thought. He knew she was the better actor. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, reporters, people insulting me. "You miserable old hag. Evil mother. I hope you die alone." Every message was a knife. But I didn't respond. Julian had told me to wait, that the time wasn't right yet. But then, I received a different kind of call. It was from my cousin Carol. "Eleanor, what is going on? I saw Sandra's video. Is it true?" I told her everything. Every detail, every humiliation, every insult, every single day of the last 2 years. Carol cried. "Cousin, why didn't you tell me? Why did you suffer alone?" "Because I was ashamed. Because admitting that my own son treated me that way was like admitting I had failed as a mother. That everything I did for him meant nothing." Carol got angry. "I'm going to post the truth. I'm going to defend you." I asked her to wait. To trust me. That I had a plan. That week was the hardest. Sandra posted daily videos. Update: we're still homeless. My mother-in-law won't answer our calls. She's blocked us from everything. We don't know what to do. Lies. They were staying at Sharon's house. I knew because Mr. Henderson told me. His niece lived on the same street. She had seen them. But Sandra was building her narrative as a homeless victim, and people believed her. Her followers grew to 15,000, then 20,000. She became a minor celebrity of family drama. I received serious threats. "We're going to find you, old woman. You deserve to have your house burned down." I called the police. They filed a report. They increased patrols on my street. Mr. Henderson offered to keep an eye out. "Don't you worry, Eleanor. I'll watch out for you." Good people still existed. In the midst of all the hate, there was still kindness. Julian finally called me. "It's time, Eleanor. We've given them enough rope. Now we're going to use it to hang them." Metaphorically, of course. He explained the plan. I would create my own video, but not an emotional one. No crying, calm, composed, with facts, with proof, with documents. You are going to destroy their narrative with the truth, and the truth always wins. I spent 2 days preparing. I wrote a script. I practiced it. Julian reviewed it. Perfect, concise, devastating. I sat in front of my phone. I pressed record, and I began to speak. "My name is Eleanor Miller. I am 65 years old, and this is my side of the story." My voice was firm, clear. No tears, no drama, just the cold, hard truth. The house I supposedly kicked my son out of is my property, purchased by me in 1992. Here is the deed. I showed the document to the camera. Kevin never paid rent. He never contributed to the bills. I paid for everything with my $800 a month pension. I showed the receipts, months of receipts, all in my name. For 2 years, I lived in the utility room of my own house. While they occupied the master bedroom, I got up at 5 in the morning to make them breakfast. I cleaned, I cooked, I washed their clothes. And I never received a thank you, only insults. I paused. I let the words sink in. Sandra called me a burden, a useless old woman. She told me I was good for nothing, that I should go to a nursing home. And my son, Kevin, never defended me. Never. On the contrary, he participated in the humiliation. I held my phone up to the camera. I have 53 audio recordings. They document every insult, every threat, every moment of emotional abuse. And now I'm going to play a few for you so you can hear the truth. I played the first recording. Sandra's voice was unmistakable. "Eleanor, you're such a burden. I don't know why Kevin doesn't just send you to a home already. At least there you'd be with other old people like you." The audio lasted 20 seconds. It was enough. I played the second one. Kevin's voice this time. "Mom, you're overreacting as usual. Nobody is treating you badly. The problem is you're too sensitive. You're too old for these theatrics." I played 5 more recordings, each one more devastating than the last. And then I showed the text messages, the screenshots where Kevin threatened me, where Sandra insulted me, all dated, all real, all verifiable. This is the truth that Sandra doesn't want you to know. She is not the victim. I was, for 2 years. And when I finally found the courage to take back my home, my dignity, my life, they decided to destroy my reputation. My voice remained steady. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just stated the facts. If you want to call me a bad mother for kicking out my son, go ahead. But know that this son treated me worse than a stranger. And I got tired. I got tired of being invisible in my own house. I got tired of being a ghost in my own life. I ended the video by showing one last document. This is the police report from the day I changed the locks. The officers confirmed that the house is mine, that I have every legal right to decide who lives here. Sandra and Kevin can lie all they want, but the facts don't lie. I uploaded the video at 8 o'clock in the evening. In 30 minutes, it had 1,000 views. In an hour, 10,000. At 2 hours, 50,000. The comments started to shift. "Oh my God, this changes everything. Sandra is a liar. That poor woman, what she must have endured." The recordings are all the proof you need, but there were still defenders of Sandra. The recordings could be fake. This is just manipulation from a bitter old woman. I don't believe a word of it. It didn't matter, because the tide was turning, and I knew it. At 3 hours, the video had 100,000 views. The media outlets that had covered Sandra's version now wanted mine. My phone exploded with calls from reporters. "Mrs. Miller, can you give us an interview?" I refused them all. Julian had advised me to let the video speak for itself. Don't give any interviews yet. Let the information sink in. Let people process the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I read every comment. I watched as their narrative crumbled. I saw people start to question Sandra, to demand answers from her. Sandra responded quickly. She posted a video at 6 in the morning. She was furious. She wasn't crying anymore. She was screaming. Those recordings are fake. Eleanor made them up. This is defamation. I'm going to sue her for slander. But that was her mistake. Screaming. Losing her composure. Showing her true colors. The comments on her video were brutal. Now your true face is showing. You don't seem like a victim anymore. You seem guilty. Those recordings are you. You can tell by your voice. Sandra started deleting comments, blocking people. But it was too late. The damage was done. Her credibility was collapsing in real time. Kevin posted his own video. Calmer than Sandra, more calculated. My mother is unwell. I think she's having mental health issues. The recordings are taken out of context. Yes, we had arguments. All families argue. But we never treated her badly. She exaggerates everything. She always has. Mental health issues. That was their new strategy. To discredit me because of my age, my mental health. To paint me as senile, confused, manipulative. But I was prepared for that too. Julian had anticipated that move. They're going to attack your credibility. They'll say you're senile. We have to get ahead of it. So I posted a second video. This one was different. Shorter. More direct. Kevin says I have mental health problems. That I'm confused. Here is the report from my last medical evaluation. 2 months ago. Perfect mental health. Cognitive abilities intact. I showed the medical document. With the doctor's seal. With the date. With everything. He also says the recordings are out of context. Here are the complete recordings. Unedited. All 53 audio files. You can listen to all of them. I uploaded them to a public folder. Accessible to anyone. Total transparency. People started to listen to them, one by one. And each audio file was worse than the last. There was no context that could justify those words. There was no possible excuse. Sandra and Kevin were completely exposed. Their followers began to abandon them. From 20,000, they dropped to 15,000. Then to 10,000. People don't forgive lies. They don't forgive manipulation. But they didn't give up. Sandra did a live stream. I'm going to answer all your questions. I'm going to clear everything up. Because Eleanor is lying and destroying our lives. The stream started. 2,000 people watching. I was watching, too. The questions came quickly. Why does your voice in the recording sound exactly like you? Sandra stammered. It could be edited. There's software for that. A lie, and people knew it. Is it true you were living in her house for free? Sandra turned red. It wasn't for free. We helped with things. With groceries. With expenses. Another lie. I had the receipts to prove I paid for everything. Someone asked the obvious question. Why don't you show proof that you helped financially? Sandra started to get angry. We don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't know what we lived through. But people wanted proof. Receipts, bank transfers, something. And Sandra had nothing. Because they never paid for anything. The livestream became chaotic. The comments were cruel. Liar. Abuser. Manipulator. Sandra started to cry. But they weren't convincing tears anymore. They were tears of rage, of frustration, of someone who knows they've lost. Kevin joined the stream. He tried to calm the waters. People don't understand. My mother has always been complicated. Ever since I was a kid, I could never please her. I did everything for her, and it was never enough. But someone asked a question that destroyed them. If your mother was so terrible, why did you live with her for 2 years? Why didn't you leave sooner? Silence. Kevin had no answer. Because the answer was obvious. They stayed because it was convenient, because they lived for free, because I was useful as their maid. Sandra abruptly ended the live stream. But the damage was done. That broadcast was their social death sentence. Clips from the stream went viral. Sandra and Kevin exposed live. The abusive daughter-in-law's lie crumbles. The media now wanted my side of the story more than ever. I agreed to one interview, only one, with the most reputable local news channel. The journalist, Mark, came to my house. He was professional, respectful. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for having me. I know this must have been difficult." The interview lasted 40 minutes. I told him everything, calmly, with details, with proof. Mark reviewed every document. He listened to the recordings. And at the end, he said something I will never forget. "Eleanor, in 20 years of journalism, I've covered a lot of stories. But this one is different. You're not looking for revenge. You're looking for justice. And that is admirable." The interview aired 2 days later. In prime time, millions of people saw it, and the impact was immediate. Social media exploded in my favor. Number justice for Eleanor. Sandra and Kevin must apologize. This woman deserves respect. But the most important thing wasn't the supportive comments. It was what happened to Sandra's job. She worked for a cosmetics company, a company that valued its public image, that sold products focused on family and values. Having an employee exposed as an emotional abuser wasn't good for business. 3 days after my interview, Sandra was fired. They didn't announce it publicly, but she did, in a video filled with rage. I was fired because of Eleanor, because of her lies, because of her hate campaign against me. I lost my job, my reputation, everything. The comments were not kind. "You lost your job because of your own actions, the consequences of your lies. No one wants to hire an abuser." Kevin faced consequences too. He worked at a tech company, small, but with a good atmosphere. His colleagues saw the videos, the recordings, and they started to see him differently. No one wanted to work with someone capable of treating his own mother that way. His boss called him into a meeting. He suggested Kevin take some time off to resolve his personal matters. It was a dismissal in disguise. Kevin blamed me, of course. He sent me a long message, full of hatred. "You destroyed my life. You destroyed my marriage, my career, all because of your selfishness. I hope you're happy." I read the message and I felt nothing. It didn't hurt me anymore. It didn't affect me. Because I finally understood something fundamental. I didn't destroy anything. They did it to themselves, with their actions, with their words, with their cruelty. I just exposed the truth. And the truth has consequences. Julian called me that week. "Eleanor, I have good news. Their lawyer has withdrawn the lawsuit. They have no case. They know it, and they don't want to expose themselves further in court." I felt an immense sense of relief. "So it's over." Julian laughed. "Not exactly. Now we're going to sue them." He explained the plan. We were going to sue for damages, for emotional distress, for defamation after they published their lying videos. "With the evidence we have, we can win easily, and they will have to compensate you financially." I wasn't sure. "Julian, I don't want their money. I just want peace." Julian was firm. "Ma'am, this isn't just about the money. It's about setting a precedent. It's so they understand that actions have real consequences. And besides, you deserve that compensation after everything you suffered." He was right. We proceeded with the lawsuit. The papers were served to Sandra and Kevin a week later. Their reaction was predictable. Sandra posted another video. "Now Eleanor is suing us. She wants to take every last penny from us. See? She's the abuser, not us." But no one believed her anymore. She had fewer than 5,000 followers. And most of them were trolls or people following the drama for entertainment. Public opinion was completely on my side. While we waited for the court date, something unexpected happened. Sharon, Sandra's mother, showed up at my house, unannounced. She knocked on the door on a Tuesday afternoon. When I opened it and saw her, my first instinct was to slam it shut. But something in her expression stopped me. It wasn't the usual haughtiness. It was something different. Weariness, perhaps. Or defeat. "Eleanor, I need to talk to you." I let her in. We sat in the living room, the same place where she had insulted me weeks before. Sharon stared at her hands. "I came to ask you to drop the lawsuit." She said it without looking at me. "Why would I do that?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were red. "Because Sandra and Kevin are destroyed. No jobs, no money, living with me in one room. If they lose in court, they will be completely ruined." I felt a pang of something. Compassion? Pity? But I buried it quickly. Sharon, for 2 years they destroyed me, and no one came to ask them to stop. No one. Sharon nodded slowly. I know. And I regret it. I should have stepped in. I should have seen what was happening. But Sandra is my daughter, and I defended her without question. At least she was being honest. Now I see the videos, the recordings, and I'm ashamed. My daughter became someone I don't recognize. Or maybe she was always like this and I just didn't want to see it. There was a long, heavy silence. Did Sandra send you to talk to me? Sharon shook her head. No, she doesn't know I'm here. If she finds out, she'll be furious. But I needed to come. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry, that you were right, and that I understand if you never forgive us. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect Sharon, of all people, to come and apologize. I'm not dropping the lawsuit. Sharon closed her eyes. I understand. She stood up to leave, but before she reached the door, she turned. One more thing. Sandra is pregnant. The world stood still. What? Sharon nodded. 3 months. She hasn't made it public because she knows how it would look. But I thought you should know. She left without another word. I remained seated in the living room, processing the information. Sandra was pregnant. I was going to be a grandmother. Or I would have been, under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. I called Julian. I told him, "Does this change anything legally?" Julian was clear. No. The pregnancy is not an excuse for the abuse they committed. The case continues. He was right, but something inside me churned. A baby, innocent, blameless. What kind of life would it have with Sandra and Kevin as parents? Would the cycle repeat? That night I thought a lot. About motherhood. About family. About what it really means to love someone. I adopted Kevin when he was 5 years old. His biological mother, my distant cousin, died in an accident. His father was unknown. No one else wanted to take him. So I did. I gave him my last name, my home, my life. I raised him as my own. I gave him everything I could. Education. Love. Stability. But at some point, something went wrong. Or maybe it was always wrong and I just didn't see it. Maybe I should have been stricter. Firmer. Maybe I spoiled him. Those questions tormented me. Was I a bad mother? Is it my fault that Kevin became who he is? But then I remembered the recordings, the words, the contempt, and I knew that no, I didn't force him to treat me that way. I didn't compel him to allow Sandra to humiliate me. Those were his choices, and he had to live with the consequences. The court date arrived 2 months later. Julian accompanied me. We entered the courtroom. Sandra and Kevin were already there with their lawyer, a young man who looked uncomfortable. Sandra glared at me with pure hatred. Her belly was now noticeable. Kevin didn't even turn his head. The hearing began. Julian presented our case. He showed the recordings, the documents, the testimonies. Jessica, my witness, testified about Sandra's conversations at work. Mr. Henderson testified about what he had seen. The evidence was overwhelming. Their lawyer tried to argue that the recordings violated their privacy, that I had obtained them illegally. Julian dismantled that in seconds. The recordings were made on Mrs. Miller's property, in her own home. It is completely legal. Then they tried the emotional angle. My client is pregnant. The stress of this trial is affecting her health. The judge looked at Sandra. That is unfortunate, but it does not absolve the actions that were committed. The hearing lasted 3 hours. In the end, the judge ruled in favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Eleanor Miller. The defendants are ordered to pay $30,000 in compensation for emotional distress and defamation. Sandra screamed, "We don't have that kind of money. This is unfair." The judge banged his gavel. "You can set up a payment plan." Next case. We left the courtroom. Sandra was crying in the hallway. Kevin was comforting her, but his face was pale, defeated. They saw me, and Sandra lunged toward me. Julian stepped between us. "Ma'am, maintain your distance or we will call security." Sandra was screaming. "You ruined everything, everything. I hope this makes you happy. I hope you can sleep at night knowing you destroyed your own family. I looked at her directly. Without fear, without guilt. I didn't destroy anything, Sandra. You two did that all on your own. I just defended myself. Kevin finally spoke. His voice was broken. Mom, please, just drop this. We're family. We can fix it. Family, that word again. Kevin, you stopped being my family the day you sent me to sleep in the utility room. The day you allowed Sandra to humiliate me. The day you told me I wasn't useful for anything anymore. His eyes filled with tears, but they no longer moved me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made mistakes. But we can start over. I shook my head. No, we can't. Because this wasn't a mistake. It was 2 years of conscious decisions, of deliberate cruelty, and now you have to live with the consequences. We left. I left them there, in that hallway, facing the reality they had created for themselves. The following weeks were strange. The house was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. There was no more tension, no more fear. I started to live again. I went out with Carol. I bought flowers to decorate the living room. Simple things I had forgotten how to do. One day, while organizing the closet, I found an old box, photos of Kevin as a child, his first day of school, his graduation, Christmases, birthdays, happy moments that now seemed like they belonged to another life, to another person. I cried looking at those photos. Not for him, for me, for the mother I had been, for the years I gave, for the love I offered that was never enough. But I also felt something else. Relief. Because I was finally free. Free from expectations. Free from guilt. Free from continuing to give to someone who only knew how to take. I closed the box. I put it in the back of the closet. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't need to see it either. It was part of my past, and I was building a different future. Julian called me a month after the trial. Eleanor, they've started to pay. $500 a month. It'll take them 5 years to pay it off, but at least they're complying. $500. It was ironic. That amount was less than what I was paying monthly when they lived with me. But it wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about the principle, about justice, about showing them that they couldn't destroy someone without consequences. I decided to do something with that money, something meaningful. I opened a special savings account. Every payment I received from them went straight into it. And when it was all paid, I would donate it to a shelter for elderly victims of family abuse. Because I discovered that I wasn't alone, that there were thousands of women like me, invisible, mistreated in their own homes, silenced by shame. If my story could help even one of them, it was all worth it. The months passed. My life found a new rhythm. I met other women at the park during my morning walks. We formed a group. We met on Wednesdays. We drank coffee. We talked. We laughed. They were women my age. Some widows. Others divorced. All with their own stories. All survivors. One of them, a woman named Angela, just like my cousin, became a close friend. She told me her story. Her son had also mistreated her, left her in a nursing home and never came back to visit. But I got out of there, she told me with pride. I sold what little jewelry I had left. I rented a small apartment, and now I live alone, in peace, happy. Stories like that reminded me I had done the right thing, that peace is worth more than any romanticized idea of family. 6 months after the trial, I received an unexpected message. It was from Kevin. Brief. Concise. Mom. Sandra gave birth. It's a boy. His name is Leo. I thought you should know. A boy. My grandson. Whom I would never know. I felt a pang. Small, but real. What would he look like? Would he have Kevin's eyes? His smile? But then I thought of Sandra, of how she spoke about me, of how she treated me, and I knew that boy would grow up hearing lies about me, that Sandra would fill him with poison, that I would never have the chance for him to know my side. And it hurt. But it was the reality. I didn't reply to the message. There was nothing to say. 2 weeks later, Kevin sent a photo. The baby was beautiful, tiny, perfect, innocent. I looked at that photo for a long time, and finally, I wrote back, "Congratulations. I hope you will be good parents. Better than you were to me." It was the only thing I could say. Kevin didn't reply. The months passed. The first year, then the second. Life went on. I sold the house. Too many bitter memories, too many shadows in every corner. I bought a smaller condo, modern, bright, in a secure building, with kind neighbors, overlooking a park. It was perfect, exactly what I needed. With the money left over from the sale, I took a trip, something I had always wanted to do, but never could. I went to Spain, the country of my grandparents. I visited small villages. I ate delicious food. I walked through ancient streets. I met people. I talked. I laughed. I lived. And for the first time in decades, I felt whole, not as a mother, not as a grandmother, just as Eleanor, as a woman, as a human being with her own worth. When I returned, I resumed my routine, my walks, my friends, my support group. I started giving talks, at community centers, in senior groups. I told my story, without drama, just facts, and I always ended with the same message: do not let anyone take your dignity from you. It doesn't matter who they are, family, friends, anyone. Your peace of mind is worth more than any toxic relationship. The responses were always the same: women crying, thanking me, telling me their own stories. My daughter treats me like that. My son stole my savings. My daughter-in-law ignores me. Devastating stories, but also stories of hope, of women who decided to change, who said enough is enough, who took their lives back. One afternoon, after one of those talks, a young woman approached me. She was about 30, nervous. "Mrs. Miller, can I talk to you?" I nodded. We sat on a bench. "I'm like Sandra," she began. My heart sped up. "I treat my mother-in-law horribly. I say awful things to her. And after hearing your story, I realize what I'm doing." Tears were streaming down her face. "I don't want to be that person. I don't want my mother-in-law to have to do what you did in 20 years. I listened to her. I gave her advice. I suggested therapy, family mediation, honest communication. She left feeling calmer, with hope. And I felt something strange. Satisfaction. Because my pain, my story, was helping to prevent others from suffering the same fate. I was creating real change. 3 years after the trial, the payments ended. $30,000 in full. I donated it as I promised. The shelter used the money to expand its facilities, to help more women. They invited me to the inauguration. It was beautiful. Women of all ages, different stories, but a similar pain. The shelter's director introduced me to everyone. "This is Eleanor. Thanks to her generosity, we were able to expand and help 50 more women each year." The applause was overwhelming. I never sought recognition. I just wanted something good to come from all that suffering. After the event, an older woman approached me. She was maybe 70. Her face was marked by time and pain. "Thank you," she said simply. "My son used to hit me. He took my pension. But they helped me here. They gave me shelter, legal support, and now I have my own apartment, my own life." I hugged her, and I cried with her, because I understood exactly what it meant to get your life back after it had been taken from you. That day confirmed something I already knew. I had made the right decision. Every step, every action. It had all been worth it. 4 years after changing those locks, my life was completely different, unrecognizable. I had peace, I had purpose, I had true friends, I had self-respect. One afternoon in April, as I was drinking coffee on my balcony, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I almost collapsed. It was Kevin. He had aged. His face had lines I didn't remember. His hair showed streaks of gray. He looked tired, defeated. "Mom," he said softly, "can I come in?" Every alarm bell in my head went off. But something in his gaze was different. There was no arrogance, no calculation, just exhaustion. I let him in. We sat in the living room. The silence was thick. How did you find my new address? I had been careful not to share it. Carol gave it to me. I begged her. I told her I needed to see you, my cousin. We would be having a talk later. What do you want, Kevin? He took a deep breath. I came to apologize. For real. No excuses. No justifications. What I did to you was unforgivable. I waited. I had heard apologies from him before, always empty, always manipulative. Sandra and I separated 6 months ago. That surprised me. She turned out to be just as cruel to me as she was to you, even worse. And when I couldn't give her the life she wanted anymore, she left me. She took Leo. His voice broke when he mentioned his son. She won't let me see him. She says I'm a bad father, that I don't deserve to be in his life. The irony was almost comical, almost. And she's right. Because she learned from me. She learned that it's okay to throw people away when they're no longer useful to you, just like I did with you. Tears were streaming down his face. Real ones, not fake. I lost my job, my wife, my son, my home, everything. And the worst part is, I deserved it. I deserved all of it. I remained silent. Part of me wanted to comfort him, the maternal instinct that never fully dies, but another part, the part that had learned to protect itself, stood firm. Why are you coming to tell me this now? Kevin looked at me directly. Because I spent 4 years blaming you, telling myself it was all your fault, that you had been cruel, unfair. But when Sandra did to me exactly what I had done to you, I finally understood. He wiped his tears. I understood the pain, the humiliation, the feeling of being invisible in your own life. And I realized that I was a monster to you. There was a long, heavy silence. I don't expect you to forgive me, he continued. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I get it now, that I'm sorry, and that if I could go back in time, I would do everything differently. His words sounded sincere, but words are easy. Actions are what count. Kevin, I appreciate you coming here, that you said this, but it doesn't change anything. His face fell. I know, and I accept that. I just wanted you to know. He stood up to leave, but at the door, he stopped. One more thing. Leo asks about you sometimes. Sandra tells him, you're dead. But he found some old pictures, and he asks who you are. My heart clenched. Someday, when he's older, I want to tell him the truth. I want him to know he had a grandmother who would have loved him, and that he lost her because of his parents. I didn't know what to say. Kevin left. I closed the door and just stood there, processing everything. Was his remorse real? Or was it another manipulation? After everything I'd been through, I no longer trusted my instincts when it came to him. I called Julian. I told him about the visit. What do you think? Julian was direct. I think he suffered and he learned. But that doesn't mean you have to let him back into your life. Remorse doesn't erase the damage. He was right. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive and still keep your distance. You can let go of the hate without opening the door. That night, I thought a lot about Leo, my grandson, a 4-year-old boy growing up without knowing me, who thought I was dead. It was unfair to him. But there was nothing I could do. Not without getting involved in the drama again. And I had worked too hard for my peace to risk it. I made a decision. I wrote a letter. Not to Kevin. To Leo. A letter he could read when he was older, when he could understand. I told him my side of the story, without hate, without blame, just the facts. I told him how much I would have loved him, how much I wished I could know him, but I also explained why I couldn't. I let him know it wasn't his fault, that the problems of adults are not the responsibility of children. I sealed the letter. I put it in a folder with instructions for Carol. If anything happened to me, she was to give it to Leo on his 18th birthday. It was the only thing I could do. My gift to a grandson I would never know. The months went by. Kevin didn't contact me again. I respected that. But one day, I received a package in the mail. Inside were photos of Leo on his first day of school, on his birthday, playing at the park, And a note from Kevin. I thought you'd want to see him grow up, even from a distance. I'll send photos every 6 months. You don't have to respond. I just want you to know that he exists for you, even if you can't be there. I put the photos in a new album, and every 6 months, more arrived. Leo growing, smiling, living. It was bittersweet, seeing what I had lost, but also beautiful, knowing he existed, that he carried my blood, even if not my name. 5 years after that first day I changed the locks, my life had found its balance, a deep peace. It wasn't the life I had imagined. I didn't have the family I had dreamed of, but I had something better. I had dignity, freedom, self-respect. My talks at community centers grew. I was asked to write a book. Your story needs to be told, they said. At first, I resisted. Who would want to read about an old woman kicking out her son? But then I understood. It wasn't about kicking anyone out. It was about reclaiming yourself. About finding courage when you thought you had none left. About choosing your own peace over the approval of others. I wrote the book. It took me a year. Julian helped with the legal aspects. Carol helped with the editing. It was published in a small run. I didn't expect much. But something strange happened. It went viral. Not on an international bestseller level, but within the senior community. It was a phenomenon. Women wrote to me. Men, too. Thank you for telling your story. You gave me the courage to get out of my situation. You saved my life. Messages like that. Hundreds. Thousands. And I understood that my pain had served a purpose greater than myself. It had created a movement. Small, but powerful. Of older people who refused to be invisible. Who reclaimed their dignity. Who said, enough. I did interviews. I appeared on shows, always with the same message. Family is not an excuse for abuse. Love does not mean tolerating everything. And it is never too late to start over. Today, I am 70 years old. 5 years have passed since I changed those locks. 5 years since I took back my life. My condo is my sanctuary. Small but cozy. Full of plants, of light, of peace. The mornings are mine. I have a quiet breakfast. I read. I listen to music. I go for walks when I want. I see my friends when I want. I live on my own terms. No longer according to the demands of others. The book had a second printing, then a third. The royalties gave me a financial stability I never had. I was able to travel more. I saw Italy, France, Portugal. Places that had only existed in magazines. Now they existed in my memories, in my photos, in my lived experience. I expanded my work with the shelter. I'm on the board of directors now. We help hundreds of women every year. We give them legal tools, emotional support, practical resources, and above all, we give them hope, the hope that they are not alone, that they can get out, that there is life after abuse. Some of those women have become close friends. We formed a community. We support each other. We celebrate birthdays together. Christmas, New Year's. We created our own family, a chosen one, based on mutual respect, on genuine affection, on reciprocity. Last month, I received an unexpected message. It was from Sandra. After 5 years of total silence, Eleanor, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need to talk to you. It's about Leo. My first instinct was to ignore it, to block her. But the mention of Leo stopped me. I agreed to a phone call, just that. Sandra sounded different. Her voice had lost that cruel edge. She sounded tired, humble even. Thank you for taking my call. I know I don't deserve it. I waited in silence. Leo is 8 years old now. He's a bright, sensitive boy. And he asks questions. Questions about family, about grandparents, about his roots. Sandra paused. I lied to him for years. I told him he didn't have any grandmothers, that they had both died. But he found the book, your book, and he saw your picture. My breath caught in my throat. He asked if you were his grandmother, and I couldn't lie anymore. I told him the truth, part of it at least. Sandra started to cry softly. He asked me why he didn't know you, why you weren't in his life. And I didn't know what to tell him without admitting it was my fault. I asked her what, exactly, she wanted. I don't know if it's fair to ask you this, but Leo wants to meet you. He read parts of the book, the age-appropriate parts, and he says he wants to meet the brave grandma, brave grandma. Those words broke my heart. Sandra, what you did to me, what Kevin allowed, was devastating. I don't know if I can open that door. Sandra sobbed. I understand. Completely. And if you say no, I will respect that. But Eleanor, I've changed. Therapy helped me see how monstrous I was. I don't expect your forgiveness. I'm just asking you to consider meeting Leo. He's innocent in all of this. She was right. Leo was innocent. I told her I would think about it. We hung up. For days, I did nothing but think. Should I risk my peace to meet my grandson? What if it was a trap? What if Sandra hadn't really changed? I talked to Julian, to Carol, to my friends from the shelter. They all told me the same thing. Do what your heart tells you, but protect yourself first. I made a decision. I would meet Leo, but on my terms, in a neutral territory, with clear boundaries. I called Sandra. I agree to meet Leo. Once. At the Central Park. This Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You will be present, but at a distance. And if at any point I feel uncomfortable, I will leave. No explanations. Sandra agreed to everything. Saturday arrived. My nerves were shredded. I got to the park 15 minutes early. I sat on a bench near the fountain. At 3 o'clock sharp, I saw them. Sandra was walking, holding a little boy's hand. Leo. Dark hair, curious eyes. When he saw me, he stopped. Sandra said something to him. He nodded, and he walked toward me, alone. My heart was beating so hard I thought he could hear it. You're Eleanor. His voice was small but firm. Yes, and you must be Leo. He nodded. He sat next to me. There was a moment of silence. Then he spoke. I read your book. Well, my mom read parts to me. You were very brave. I didn't know what to say. Thank you, Leo. He looked at me with those big eyes. Is it true that I'm your grandson? I nodded. Yes, you are my grandson. A huge smile lit up his face. Cool. I always wanted a grandma. We spent an hour together. We talked about his school, his friends, his interests. He liked to draw. Dinosaurs, adventure books. He was bright, sweet. Everything Kevin had been as a child, before something twisted. When it was time to go, Leo hugged me. Tightly. Can I see you again? I looked over at Sandra. She nodded from a distance. Yes, Leo. We can see each other again. His smile said it all. He left with Sandra, but before he walked away, he turned back. Grandma Eleanor, I like you. Grandma Eleanor. I cried on that bench for 20 minutes. Tears of joy, of pain, of healing. I see Leo once a month now, always in neutral places. Parks, museums, coffee shops. Sandra keeps her distance. She respects the boundaries. And slowly, very slowly, I am getting to know my grandson. I don't have a relationship with Sandra. I probably never will. The damage was too deep. Kevin is not a part of my life either. According to Sandra, he's in therapy, working on himself. I hope it's true. For his sake. For Leo's sake. But I don't need his repentance to move on. I moved on years ago. My life now is full, Rich. Meaningful. Not in the way I imagined. But maybe better. Because I built it myself. According to my values, my needs, my dreams. I learned lessons I will never forget. I learned that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. That loving someone doesn't mean tolerating everything. That biology doesn't guarantee respect or genuine love. And that it is never, ever too late to choose yourself. There are still hard days. Days when I wonder what would have happened if I had acted differently, if I had been firmer from the start, if I had set boundaries sooner. But then I remember, you can't change the past. You can only learn from it. and use those lessons to build a better future. My story became public. Thousands know it. Some admire me, others criticize me. A mother should never kick out her son. I read their words. I processed them, and I let them go. Because they didn't live my life. They didn't sleep in that utility room. They didn't hear those daily insults. They didn't feel that constant humiliation. Only I lived that. And only I had the right to decide when enough was enough. The shelter I helped expand now bears my name. The Eleanor Center for Support. It's an honor, but it's also a commitment. To keep being a voice for the voiceless. To keep fighting for those who are still trapped. Last week, I gave another talk. A woman in her 60s approached me afterward. My daughter treats me exactly like Sandra treated you, but I'm afraid of being alone. I took her hands. The loneliness you fear is less painful than the company that destroys you. And besides, when you choose yourself, you are never truly alone. She cried in my arms, and she promised she would take action. Stories like that remind me why it was worth it. Because every tear, every moment of pain, every day of uncertainty was absolutely worth it. Today, I look out the window of my condo. The sun is warm, my plants are blooming, my coffee is perfect, and I am at peace. A deep peace, earned with blood, sweat, and tears. But it's mine, completely mine. I don't regret adopting Kevin. I gave him a life he wouldn't have had. I gave him genuine love, opportunities, and education. That doesn't change just because he chose to be cruel later. My kindness was real. My love was real. The fact that he didn't know how to value it doesn't diminish its worth. I only regret not understanding sooner that kindness should never be practiced at the cost of self-destruction. That loving others begins with loving yourself. That setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. This is my story. A story of loss, but also of rebirth. Of pain, but also of healing. Of being broken down, but also of rebuilding stronger. And if there is anyone reading this, anyone suffering in silence in their own home, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Your pain is valid. And you have the right to choose your peace over any family obligation. Because in the end, the only thing that truly belongs to us is our dignity. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take it from us. I got mine back. And you can too.